Coming up next on Columbus Connection, builders, business owners. We've got John Hudgison from Inspection and Codes. He's going to answer some of your questions. Welcome to Columbus Connections. I am your host, David Britt. And one thing that we like to do is talk to some of the departments that you, the public, works with often. Now, to all my builders and business owners and just homeowners, maybe you've had some talking with inspections and codes. You've had questions about zoning or what can I build on my property or whatever. We've got the man to ask, Mr. John Hudgison. He's one of the newer department heads. He took over Inspection and Codes, about a year ago?
Been a year. Mm-hmm.
And already off to a great start. He's been receiving awards and accolades since he's been there. You really hit the ground running. And you guys are really you're picking up on a good job and just taking it to the next level.
Yeah, we had a lot of modernization now.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of things that was just kind of pen and paper, and we're trying to digitize to help with access with GIS and our new permitting system. So a lot of those things are starting to go into place now, and they're working very well.
Right, and that's like your website is more upgraded, more up to date.
Correct. We wanted to be able to have all the information so that everybody's, any permit you were looking for or any permit you had a question for, you can literally print it out on the computer. So therefore, you know what you're looking for and specific questions you know we're going to ask when you come up to the front desk.
Gotcha. Now, for any city employee, the public thinks all city employees do everything. And while we're happy to help as much as we can or direct you to where we need to go, tell us exactly what Inspections and Codes does.
All right, twofold. Inspections and Codes, primarily we do building construction. So that's new, renovations, additions, and it's the structure itself. We kind of get tangled up with special enforcement sometimes with yards and things like that. But it's primarily the building construction and making sure that process is done correctly. The other half of that is we deal with abandoned homes and property maintenance. So that's kind of the other side where we get mixed up with special enforcement with abandoned homes and the demolition process that we do take to council.
When you say property maintenance, you mean if weeds are overgrown, or what does that mean when you say?
Well, under property maintenance, weeds overgrown would go to special enforcement, but we would deal with the structures. Say if you're a tenant and you're living in an apartment complex or you're living in a house and you're renting it from somebody, you end up, if your plumbing's not working, your water's not on, your power's acting up, your stove's not working, things like that are part of just daily living that you're having issues with, that we'd be able to come in and help kind of facilitate that landlord to come into compliance.
Gotcha. Now, on the business side, with coding, what do you all do as far as with zoning or with businesses and things like that?
Well, the best thing about the annex is it has us planning and engineering. So we treat it more or less like a one-stop shop. So
Gotcha.
If a business comes in, hadn't been here, doesn't know anything, they want to come in and sit down with us, and they'll sit down with me over the building codes department. We sit down with Donna Newman with engineering and Rick Jones with planning. So therefore, they kind of, before they get too far down the road, we can kind of let them know what can and can't work, what areas are, acceptable of the zoning wise for this building or whatever new project to take place.
Gotcha. And because one question that we get sometimes, or that you all may have gotten, is if there's a business and somebody wants to put a certain business in a certain place and feels that they can't do it, but they feel it's unfair because another business similar is there. What is that called, and why does that happen?
Well, officially in the UDO, it's called an existing non-conforming.
UDO, what's UDO?
The Unified Development Ordinance.
Okay.
So we would more or less call it, common speak, more as grandfathered in. Those properties were, at that point, a zoning requirement wasn't there or a building requirement wasn't there prior to being put in the UDO or in the code. So therefore, it's grandfathered in. So therefore, you may go and you want to put a type of business here in this zone that's not allowed, but there's already one there previous. But because of the code was written and that property's been there, say, since the 80s, there was not, the codes weren't as strict then as they are now. So, like I said, it is kind of unfortunate, and we get a lot of a lot of choice words from some people because they were like, well, they got to do it, and why couldn't I do it? But usually, once we sit down and explain that to them, they tend to understand.
Gotcha. So if somebody has one of those type questions, the best thing is to come down to the Annex building on 10th Street. You guys are a one-stop shop, and by the time they leave, they'll know what they need to do where they need to go and how they need to handle it.
Typically, we get the bad rap is as soon as you come down, we're going to make it a permit where you got to get a permit. But typically, we just want to know what you're doing.
Right.
And then if we know what the work, and like I said, with we've done new ordinance changes. So we help better spell out what does and doesn't need a permit, like typical maintenance. People, if you're just coming in to fix some plumbing up under your sink, you wouldn't need a permit for that. That would be typical maintenance. You're not running a new plumbing line. Now that would need a permit, but if you're just coming in to fix your P-trap or you're replacing your toilet, things like that don't need a permit.
Gotcha. Now, you've been with the city for a while. You've taken on some great projects. I know you started off, you're an architect by trade.
Yes.
How has it been transitioning into being a department head?
Well, my degree is in architecture and design, and I worked for a private architecture firm before I came to the city, and so I'd worked over in engineering for 5 years previous. And so I was over there, and a lot of the bigger projects, fire station, this building here, Citizen Service Center, a lot of those projects I had my hands in, making sure that the money was spent the best way. So we understand that we are using taxpayers' money, and we're making sure as these projects go that we're making sure we're not cutting corners, but we're making sure that we're doing an efficient job with the money and watching over and making sure we're not overspending, or if we can foresee problems coming ahead to try to kind of head them off.
Right, right. And I bring that up because you're from Columbus.
Yes.
And I think it's great, aside from what we're touching on here, just for people to see, you know, how much talent and how much great people Columbus has. Whether you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, architect, and for folks to also know that your path isn't always your plans.
That's right.
But it still works out.
Yeah, my dad, my mom and dad were just like, hey, apply for this job with the city, and I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna be the one.
Yeah.
And I applied, met with Donna. She loved my interview. They hired me, and they just kind of threw me in the deep end, and so, I
came out surfing.
Yeah, so I did pretty good, and kind of, like I said, and got to know a lot of those contractors. So then when I moved over to doing more of the private work, not the public work, the private work with inspections and code, I already had those built-in relationships.
Right.
So a lot of those contractors already knew me, and they were like, okay, we know John, he's looking for X, Y, and Z, or this, we know we got to do that, So a lot of that stuff, it kind of went without being said, that it worked out a lot better. But like I said, for being here in Columbus and seeing the growth, even between the 5 years I left and went to college and came back, it was just, man, what's all going on in Columbus? And then actually getting to be behind the scenes and help bringing these projects to fruition is a great pride.
Yeah. Now, this month is what is National Building Month?
Building Safety Month.
Building
Yes.
Safety Month.
So typically, the International Code Council, ICC, they sent out an initiative this year. So this year was focusing on economic development. Like I said, one of the big things about being a code official is you have to balance the economic development with being a code official. You have certain codes that you have to follow, and then there's other ones which you have more performance codes.
Right.
And therefore, we're trying to meet in the middle where we're not too slack on the codes, and therefore you can build whatever you want wherever you want it, and then stuff starts falling down. So,
Right.
but then you don't want to be too strict, and then you restrict buildings. So it's
Right.
trying to find that happy medium with architects, engineers, designers, and home builders to make sure they can continue to prosper, we continue to inspect, and everybody can make a little money.
Yeah. So if they want to contact you all, they can come down to the annex building.
Yeah, 420 10th Street. We're available there. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And we'll be there. Any questions you may have, you can also email us, our website, columbusga.org, and the Inspections and Codes Department will have list of facts and information that you can get from us there.
Awesome. And we'll be doing a lot more updates. Anytime these guys want to come on, the chair is always yours. We appreciate the job that you're doing. And the citizens, we appreciate you guys for watching. And again, we're just trying to make things work in Columbus, make things work at a better, efficient place for all of us. Thanks for watching. We'll be back soon. This is Columbus Connections.